Welcome back, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Silver Slayer, so now let's talk silver. This video is jam-packed with so much information and data that I actually had to do things a little differently, a different format, but I think it calls for an incredibly educational, informational, and hopefully entertaining video. Now, we got to break this down in 4 parts. So this first article is talking about how commodities are hurt by a crisis of confidence, and it's the 1 year mark or the anniversary of Putin's so-called special operation, which was only expected to last for days, but they go into that. And then we have another article that's talking about how China's PMI boosts metals complex. We're going into something that is mentioning how silver led gold higher, but more work needed to shift sentiment. Then we have another one. Silver dropped as hotter U.S. inflation data fueled bets on raising interest rates. We have a section here that I wanted to highlight. Then we have another article. Silver settled flat after a slew data raised fears that interest rates remain high. So you can see how we broke this video up into 4 parts, but I just couldn't cover all of this. So we highlighted the main points and we're just going to jump off of that. So as you can see, this video is jam-packed with stuff to talk about. Great conversation. I hope you liked the video. And if you do like the video, then please like the video. Also, let me know what you think about this stuff in the comment section below. Throw your 2 cents in. Just be respectful. And I got to mention that I'm doing a massive silver giveaway, and the entry video is live. You have a chance to win an entire tube of sealed eagles shipped straight to your front doorstep. Click the link in the description or the pinned comment. And like always, may the luckiest stackers win. So let's jump into this. 1 year on from Russia's attack on Ukraine. This week also marks the tragic 1-year anniversary of Putin's so-called special operation, which was only expected to last for a few days. The attack on February 24th last year was a major miscalculation on Putin's part, with Russia having suffered one military and economic defeat after another. Now, there is a lot of speculation, a lot of hearsay. I'm not going to go into all of the details on that. I just want to talk about how this affects the economy and in part with the price of silver moving forwards and even now. Part of the miscalculation was Putin's belief that the rest of the world would roll over just as they did following the Crimea in 2014. So anyways, this is the important part. Russia and Ukraine are both major suppliers of raw materials to the global economy, and faced with the risk of supply being disrupted, the weeks that followed the invasion saw several key commodities, from crude oil, natural gas to wheat and some industrial metals, rally sharply. Ukraine, a major supplier of grains to the global market, saw its supply lines being attacked and disrupted, thereby temporarily sending wheat futures in Chicago to a record last March before reversing lower after a UN-sponsored grain export corridor was open. So there is a very, very close correlation. And actually, if you ever want to get a good idea of what silver's doing, look at oil. They're very identical. Russia was hit by a very severe sanction or sanctions, resulting in a voluntary buyer strike, which for a brief period saw Brent crude oil spike to near $140 a barrel, while gasoline, diesel futures, was at $223 a barrel. The LME, or the London Metals Exchange Index, meanwhile surged to record highs, led by nickel and aluminum, the latter a very energy-intensive metal to produce, while nitrogen fertilizer produced from natural gas also went on a tear. So you could see kind of how this all translates. Now remember, like I said, oil and silver are very, very, very closely correlated. So that sparked all of this, right? That sparked everything. Now, China is silver's biggest consumer. China's silver's biggest consumer. Now, China's also part of the Brics nations, which, by the way, in my last video, I just covered. India is actually putting something new in place to give investors even more opportunity to buy silver with ETPs, which would in return still affect the physical supply. Mind you that India already just bought 8,800 tons, hundreds of millions of ounces of silver last year, and now that's going to be even higher, which, by the way, that was record breaking last year. Now it's going to be even higher. India is part of the BRICS nations. China is part of the BRICS nations. Russia's part of the BRICS nations, right? The BRICS nations, BRICS, stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. So we have Russia, India, and China, the three countries in the middle of BRICS, all heavily buying precious metals. Now, we also see Russia buying boatloads of gold recently. Actually, I just did a video of Vladimir Putin coming out and talking about why you need to own gold, you need to own land and food, yada, yada. But everything is the domino effect that Andy Schectman's been talking about is falling into place. Now, China reopened this year, which is the biggest consumer. So we have India, which is buying double. We're talking about double. It was 4,000 something tons last year to 8,000 plus tons this year, almost 9,000. So double the demand from India. China is opening, so we have huge demands coming from them. Russia also, and gold, buying boatloads of gold as well. You could see how this is all going to have a huge effect, a ripple effect. Beyond, that's just the supply deficit part that I like to talk about. But then you also have all of this. Check this out. So commodities have started March on a firmer footing after China data confirmed that activity in the world's biggest consumer of raw materials is picking up momentum. In addition, industrial metals, including silver, was supported by the first rise in China's home sales in 20 months. Additional support has been provided by a softer dollar after weaker U.S. data led the market to question whether 3 additional 25 basis point rate hikes are necessary. So there's a lot in this article. I mean, there is a lot, but I want to go down here. Silver led gold higher, but more work needed to shift sentiment. It's usually the opposite. Gold usually leads silver higher, right? I call silver gold on steroids. It's like gold, but a much more exaggerated version. If gold's going to rise 10%, silver's going to rise 15%, and vice versa. Silver just lags gold a little bit. So precious metals trade higher for a third day, which, by the way, this was written, I think, yesterday. Actually, today. Yesterday. March 1st. So this was written yesterday. So for a third day in a row, after the market concluded its latest round of hawkish comments from U.S. FOMC members, and additional rate hikes were now being fully priced in. See, there we go. Some of the aftermath effect, right? Before then, both gold and silver had suffered a month of selling led by silver's near 12% slump, with U.S. bond yields still climbing for fear policymakers that may struggle to get inflation under control. So we do, however, suspect that the recent slump is likely to have triggered continued demand from central banks. Let me read that again. We do, however, suspect that the recent slump is likely to have triggered continued demand from central banks. So since silver's down, banks are buying more of it, as we should as well. A group that, according to the World Gold Council, snapped up a record 1,136 tons of gold last year, most of which was executed around the $1,800 level. This record demand helped support gold at a time where developments in ETF flows down 115 tons in 2022, rising dollar and real yields at one point last year showed gold was overvalued by more than $300. And then they talk about the correction, but I want to go down here. Like I said, there's a lot to all this, so I just really want to highlight the main point. Silver led the recovery in response to the China PMI report, as it gave an even bigger boost to the industrial metal sector. The gold to silver ratio, which yesterday hit a 4-month high at 88.4, meaning it takes 88.4 ounces of silver to equal 1 ounce of gold. The ratio changes every day as the price changes. And by the way, the gold to silver ratio is a very interesting thing. It's a great tool to see if gold's better buy or overpriced, or if silver's underpriced. Obviously, if you're investing in something, you want to invest into something that's underpriced, right? That's undervalued. You don't want to invest in something that's overvalued. You want to invest in something that's undervalued. See, the GSR, gold to silver ratio, it comes out of the ground 8-1. So anything above that is just man-made manipulated, which is true because throughout history, It was 8 to 1 back in the day. It actually was 2.5 to 1. 2.5 parts silver equals 1 part gold, and then it was 8 to 1 because that's the ratio it came out of the ground. And then for thousands of years, it was 16 to 1. It wasn't until 1930 when FDR got in office he changed it from 16 to 1 to 75 to 1, basically overnight. And it never really, after that 75 to 1 that he put in motion, that's kind of been the quote unquote norm, which is crazy to think. Why is gold 88.4 times more valuable than silver when silver has 88,000 times more uses than gold? Gold basically just sits around in safes and bank vaults and worn on people's necks and fingers. Why is gold so much more valuable? It's not because it's more rare. Silver's just as scarce, to be honest. They just look for gold more. They're looking for gold, lead, and zinc. Silver's a byproduct. If they find silver, they'll take it. They're not looking for it, though. So saying the gold to silver ratio coming out of the ground 8 to 1 is irrelevant because, one, most silver's thrown away that gets dug up. That 8 ounces of gold that gets dug up, it's going to stay in circulation for centuries because it's used for things that get remelted back into more rings and necklaces, where silver's used in laptops and solar panels. It's thrown away, never to be recycled. So not only is most silver getting thrown away, but also it's found by accident. So you can't say that, oh, it's just because gold's more rare. And beyond that, though, it's just a completely manipulated type of ratio. And I do think one day, once silver's natural value starts to shine through, that the gold to silver ratio will go back down. Regardless, though, that was just my little take on it. There's obviously a lot more to the story. You can actually use the gold to silver ratio to earn free gold or free silver by simply just trading between the ratios. For example, if the gold to silver ratio is 90 to 1, let's say you have 1 ounce of gold and you trade it in for 90 ounces of silver. So now you have 90 ounces of silver. And then let's do it like this. Let's say you have 90 ounces of silver. You walk into your coin shop and trade it in for 1 ounce of gold because the ratio is 90 to 1. So you had 90 ounces of silver you bought. Go in there, trade it. Now you have 1 ounce of gold. You're hanging out. Maybe 2 years later, maybe 2 months later, the gold to silver ratio is 100 to 1. Now you could take that 1 ounce of gold you have, trade it back in for 100 ounces of silver. So you originally had 90 ounces of silver. You traded it, no money out of your pocket. Then you had 1 ounce of gold, and then you traded the ounce of gold back and got 100 ounces of silver. So you made 10 extra ounces of silver by not spending a penny out of your pocket, just by waiting as the ratios go up and down and just trading it back and forth. So, I mean, obviously you have to use bullion and very, very low premium stuff, but you can literally earn free gold or free silver without spending a penny out of your pocket. And some people do that. It is pretty tricky, but it is possible. So anyways, the gold to silver ratio hit a 4-month high and has since retraced to around 87. And that's in order to signal a proper reversal. And that's to break the ratio, it would need to have an uptrend from December low, currently around 85.35, yada, yada. And then they're talking about how industrial metals rebound, which, yes, industrial metals are going to have, definitely have more opportunity than monetary metals, such as gold. You know, my name is Silver Slayer for a reason, because silver's industrial purposes is what is going to set silver aside from gold. Silver can take on a life of its own, regardless of what gold's doing, regardless of what stock market volatility is doing. And that's because silver is going to be the metal needed as we expand in this new technological era. Gold, not so much. Yes, there's gold in electronics, but a very small percentage, where silver, very high percentage. Plus, there's a silver shortage, not a gold shortage. So yeah, industrial metals definitely are going to do a lot better. Even if you're talking about copper, even if you're talking about platinum or palladium, anything that's used industrially has opportunity and potential there. Silver, it just makes the most sense. So anyways, another article from investing.com is talking about how silver dropped as hotter U.S. inflation data fueled bets on raising interest rates. So you can see how we're kind of going back and forth and talking about all these different things that's affecting the price. So U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen told that New U.S. data showing an unexpected jump in inflation in January signals that the fight against inflation is not a straight line, and more work is needed. Investors now expect the Fed to raise interest rates, and I see this word expect. Investors now expect. So that means they're investing off of speculation, off of assumptions, off of assuming what they think is going to happen. They think it's going to be around 5.4%, but what if that 5.4% is not what actually happens? That means the market is based off, silver's price is based off of assumptions, where silver should be based off of the fundamentals of supply and demand. Anything tangible that has intrinsic value that is physical, it should be based solely off the fundamentals, not all this speculation. Leave that to cryptocurrency, things that are purely based off speculation, but not precious metals. And that's why, if you watch my channel, you know I hate that S word, and that S word is speculation. But anyways, let's keep moving on. It's going to take more effort on the part of the Fed to get inflation on the sustainable downward path to 2%. So now let's go into the last article, and this one is talking about how silver settled flat after slew data raised fears that interest rates remain high. Kind of going off of the last article. Economic data added to investor concerns that interest rates globally could stay higher for longer than expected. And this is interesting. Hopes for a recovery in activity also supported demand for silver as an industrial input, which was reflected in growth of solar energy-oriented equities worldwide. And by the way, check this out. Record solar demand should support silver as prices start the week below $21. Solar demand is going to be booming. Solar demand is going to be booming. We have a lot of good stuff, folks. I mean, I just showed you 3 other articles. I'm not going to be showing in this video. I'll break those down another time. But I'm glad that and here's something you gotta check out right here. This is the meat and potatoes of this last article. So this was reflected in growth of solar energy-oriented equities worldwide. Meanwhile, tight stocks continued to lift bidding levels, with inventories at the LBMA and COMEX remaining at low levels. Additionally, new data revealed reserves by major producers Peru declined by 22,000 tons to 98,000 in 2022. Peru is the biggest silver mine. Mexico and Peru. Those 2 countries alone, Mexico and Peru, they equate to almost half of all the silver produced globally. Just those 2 countries, it's 40%. Mexico and Peru accumulate 40. The other 60% is just a whole bunch of other little countries. It's like Mexico, Peru, Chile, Australia, China. But those 2 countries alone got dig up most of the silver. So still, projections of tighter monetary policy by major central banks continue to raise the opportunity cost of holding bullion investments, limiting silver's momentum. So you can see a lot's going on, and I can't go into all these articles in full detail, but if you guys want, I'll link them in the description. But like you can see, there's a lot happening, and you can see that it is all kind of just all the pieces of the puzzle are starting to fall together. I still don't think this is big enough. This type of these scenarios aren't big enough to put anything real in motion yet. I think there has to be that one spark. I think the spark is coming, right? I think there still has to be that one thing. It could have been the Russia-Ukraine conflict, but I think something else has to. Now, some people say it's going to happen sooner than later. I think it's going to happen in the next 2 years, 3 years max, when I'm talking about triple-digit plus silver. Some people say it could be a lot sooner. I'm not going to go into those reasons, but that's my opinion. I'd love to hear what you think as well. When do you think silver is going to hit triple digits? A lot, you have to incorporate so many unknown variables as well. I mean, we have the 2024 elections coming up. That could be the spark. I mean, there's a lot to this. And it depends who wins the election on what could have, what that time frame could be. So anyways, yeah, I'm going to wrap this video up here. But remember, I'm doing a huge giveaway. So if you want a chance to win some silver shipped straight to your front doorstep, and I'm talking about a sealed tube of Eagles. Sealed tube of Eagles, probably going to be like 2023 Eagles. Then make sure you go enter the links in the description or the pinned comment. And like always, may the luckiest stackers win. And I say stackers because I'm going to be doing several giveaways over the next 4 or 5 months. So click the bell as well so you don't miss the other entry videos. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. This was Silver Slayer. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.